Welcome back to the Literary Ladle, where we talk with authors about their books, their writing journeys, and the stories behind the stories. Today, I am joined by my wonderful friend and fellow author of young adult fantasy, Katherine Briggs, author of Eternity Gate and The Immortal Abyss, which make up the Threshold Duology. We'll talk about her fantasy world, what it was like writing 2-book series, and her upcoming Kickstarter project, including a special title reveal. Welcome, Katherine. To begin with, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what first drew you into writing fantasy?
Yes, and thank you so much for Theresa for having me on today. Theresa and I've done book events together and different things, and you're just a lovely person. So this is so fun to be here. Let's see. My writing journey started when I was about 3 years old. I think because my parents read out loud to me a lot. I just loved creating stories in my own mind. My parents would give me spiral notebooks like from Walmart or whatever, and colored pencils, and I would draw pictures, and my mom would write down the words for me, which was really kind of her. And eventually I did learn to write by myself and learned how to type on a computer and just kind of went from there. For fantasy, I've always loved fantasy and it never went away from me even when I became an adult. And I think it's individual to each fantasy writer, but I think we can all agree the sense of wonder, the sense of there's something more out there. Life is so much bigger than we can imagine, and fantasy, in a way, gives us a lens to help us see that better.
Yes. And especially for me, because I'm neurodivergent, I was actually listening to another podcast and they were talking about how people that are neurodivergent, we tend to go into the fantasy world and it's to kind of like better explain things. So I think that when we have that sense of wonder, we go through fantasy, it's like we have a better understanding of ourselves and the outside world, I think.
That's fascinating. No, it makes sense. Kind of like symbols to explain things.
Yeah, exactly. So one of my favorite authors is Tolkien, and I'm constantly like referencing him. And so like for me, it's like that idea of, like that Christian theme in the duology of his fantasy series and mixing faith. And I think that's how we are as authors. We tend to try to understand things, but in order to do that, we have to write it down.
Well said.
So, for someone discovering your books for the first time, how would you introduce the Threshold duology?
A workout partner helps you show up. Why should writing a novel be any different? StoryRise helps you find your writing circle. Join a reading room, share chapters with beta readers, and exchange thoughtful feedback as your story takes shape. Write alongside others in a live sprint, or take part in a StoryRise community-wide writing challenge where hundreds of writers work toward their goals together, share their progress, and encourage one another in event lounges. Your manuscript, characters, plot threads, and reader feedback all stay in one place, right through to a beautifully typeset book. Start your 14-day free trial at getstoryrise.com. That's getstoryrise.com.
Usually tell people about book 1, The Eternity Gate, and I say that The Eternity Gate is set in a world where kings and monsters battle over treasure locked behind an ancient doorway, and the main character, Seo, she has the key and thus holds the fate of her nation in her hands. And book 2 is about her best friend, who is just incredibly gifted in wielding fire. She's been training under powerful fire wielders her entire life in order to seize the throne from the corrupt dynasty. Her first step in order to do this is to this mythological legend to life to help them out. So a lot of duologies, there's like a huge cliffhanger right in the middle. My duology, the Threshold duology, the books work together. They continue chronologically, but they're both like their own stories. In fact, book 2 is really written from like the enemy nation's point of view, which some people find really, really fun.
And I like the fact that you mentioned that you read it from a different perspective. For a lot of authors, they tend to focus more on the protagonist rather than the antagonist. So I like that you switched it up and then you go straight into the antagonist point of view, because I don't think that that is as common, and I think we need to see more of that, because it's like, how does an enemy, so to speak, how do they think? What is their motivations?
What do? We like to have things so concrete, like this one thing is 100% bad, and this other thing is 100% good. And I do think there are a few, like handful of things in the universe that are like that, but otherwise, most things, there's a little bit of both, and it's helpful to see the other person's perspective. Some things are just wrong and need to be stopped, but often there's like a misunderstanding or something going on that can help clear up conflict.
When you are writing a story, like the way I do mine, I'm working on the third book. I like to write in that sort of fashion where it's like, what makes this person or this being as an antagonist, what makes them tick? Why do we focus so much on the protagonist point of view? Because it's good. Obviously, it's good. But at the same point, I think it's important to understand. I think it's really important to take that perspective.
I like it because it broadens our own perspectives. There's a lot we don't understand, because I believe we could learn forever. Like if we could live forever, we would continue learning forever. There's just so many things to learn.
So where did your original idea come from for Eternity Gate?
That one. So there is a character, one of the best loved characters in the series, and he came to my mind first. He's got a pretty intense backstory. So at the time, I thought writing his story just by itself would have been really heavy. And then I just had this random idea of a handmaiden to the princess helping the princess dress in the morning. And that's where the current official main character Seo came from. She is the handmaiden. And then the other character, he totally shows up in the books, but we catch up with him a little bit later instead of at the beginning of his story, if that makes sense. And it worked well for me.
I don't know why, but this is giving me like Zelda vibes. So would you say that that was like also part of your inspiration? I know how it is. It's like you're doing anything other than writing, and then all of a sudden you're like, wait, I have this really great idea and I need to go, and then all of a sudden you sit down and then it's like, wait, where did it go? Where did it go?
Zelda specifically, I remember playing an hour of the video game when I was really little. So actually, I don't know much about her story, but if you're talking about just like doing something else randomly, yes, I think I was watching a movie. And I don't even think it was like a fantasy movie or anything. And it just popped into my mind and I thought, oh, that's fun. The subconscious at work.
I think that's how, for writers, like the best ideas are like, correct me if I'm wrong, was it J.K. Rowling? Wasn't she like on a train and then she had like the idea of Harry Potter when she was like on a train?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. And then wasn't it Tolkien who was grading homework? And he had the idea for The Hobbit and he wrote it down on a piece of homework?
From my understanding, he was sitting down, the paper in front of him. He was kind of annoyed because the writing was not very good. He turned it over and then he started saying once there was, how it goes, it was like a person living in a hole in the ground.
And it was a nice hole, not a dirty one. Yeah. I love that. What a fun opening to a novel. Oh my gosh.
I was like, all right, now after this, we're going to like start writing.
About, we'll all be books set in the Shire and all.
Exactly. So getting back to returning into the fantasy world, what is it like returning to this world for the Immortal Abyss? And did writing the second book feel different from writing the first book?
For sure. The Eternity Gate is my first contracted novel. The Eternity Gate, I didn't realize how much time I had to write it and be so careful with it. And then the Immortal Abyss was under contract. So, which is really interesting. I do well with pressure. So, and half of me was panicking. Like, can I do this? And is the final book in the duology, can I just blow the reader's minds, keep amping up the stakes and all of those things we want to do to blow our readers away in a good way, right? And it's amazing the solutions that can just pop up under pressure. That was such an interesting thing to learn from the Immortal Abyss. You don't want to rush things. You never want to do that. There's a difference between going fast and rushing. Pressure makes diamonds. So hopefully there are a couple diamonds in the Immortal Abyss because there was some serious pressure.
Yeah, as far as phrasing, that's something my husband likes to do. He likes to say, like cream rises, or yeah, cream rises to the top. And so it's the same kind of thing, because I'm always like, oh gosh, I'm having a writer slump or something, and I'll be like boohooing in the corner. And I'm like, I need to like, and then he's like, okay, take a breath, go walk. I'm having a little writer's slump. There's so many things that I want to do. It's like when you have these ideas of, oh, I want to do this, I want to do this. And then when you get into it, you're like, wait. So I figured, okay, maybe the problem is that I'm on the computer and I need to like get back to writing in a spiral.
Yeah, I think it depends on the process for me, but I think in general, when I can brainstorm on paper, and you would mention walking, I just learned like walking in general just makes us more creative. So yes, notebooks and walking are great for brainstorming.
Yes. And for me, like I have so many ideas. I was talking to a friend of mine. He has a graphic novel series that he's agented and everything. But I was like, it's a little different. And I'm a little intimidated by the graphic novel aspect, because it's like, it's not like writing like you're writing a fantasy novel or you're writing a chapter book or whatever, right? Okay, I'm writing a panel. And so he gave me
Yeah.
good feedback. He said, okay, write the story first, then go into the panel idea.
It almost sounds like screenwriting. I mean, they're so different art forms, but in a way, I wonder if it's kind of similar.
I think so, but then it's like you have to create the setting and dialogue, like you would do in a normal storytelling. But then the aspect of, you're creating the scene, because it's a panel. They said this here, and then they have like the scene, and it cuts to the scene, and is the action that's going on. For like graphic novels, they're completely different to any art form. But then you could have like 100-page graphic novel, because you're writing in panels, and each little square is like a new scene. So that's why I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know how to do this.
That's so cool that you connected with someone who knows, though, and they were able to tell you what to do or give you some advice. That's, oh my gosh. I love our writing community. It's so supportive.
It
I'm like
is.
blown away by that and so grateful because we need each other. It's a hard thing to do.
Yes, yes. And especially like I find children's authors I haven't expanded outside of that, but like for Kidlit, I love our community because they're very welcoming, and it's like we're all trying to help each other out, because we're all just trying to create good books, read. So that's what we need. We need that kind of community. So
Absolutely.
I really liked that. No, that was fun. Is there a particular character whose journey surprised you while you were writing the series?
Ooh. I think all their journeys surprised me because, like, I feel like I know them and then I'm outlining and I'm, doing the character sketches for them in a separate document. And then you start writing and you go, wait, they're a little different. A big surprise would be very early on in the Threshold Duology, there are, depending on where you're born, you inherit an elemental gifting. And the main character in the Eternity Gate, Sayo, she inherited the wrong gifting, according to her. And when I was first writing the opening chapters of this book, which is actually became like a deleted scene, and we went with something different at the end. But as I was kind of like exploring my way into the story, initial drafts, she didn't have this elemental gifting. And then all of a sudden she did. It just popped into my brain randomly again. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. And I just ran with it. And that really surprised me that she was able to do this thing. In fact, that scene was, of course, reshaped a little bit. And it's actually like would be considered the midpoint of the novel, like the middle scene where something like big changes in the story. So it did still get used, but I was like such a revelation. Like, yeah, that's cool. She should be able to do that.
I always like it when there's like, it's like a bonus or Easter egg, so to speak, for and that could go into the next story, or it could be like you go back and you read the previous book and you're like, oh wait, I need this, let me add this into this new story, and how can we connect it? I like the fact that they have they're born with a special power. I think that is the coolest thing. So
It's fun because it makes it feel a little more like scientific. Like, depending on your parentage or whatever, like that's what you would have. And they're
your world includes elemental gifting. We just spoke about that, which is great because that kind of goes into my next question. Ancient gates, legends, and different cultures. What was your world building process like?
Ooh, well, I like to brainstorm the world a lot. I think so. You have a character sketch. I would have a world sketch for the different parts of the world that each book would explore. So I'm a planner. If we haven't figured that out. However, I think my heart is very discovery writer. So a lot of the world building I flesh out as I'm writing and even editing. And the Eternity Gate was not incredibly difficult to think about because it involves caves and castles and forests. And these are things that I have experienced myself. So that was fun. The Immortal Abyss was more challenging because it's a desert world. And I've kind of been in some drier, deserty places, but I needed to read some books and do more research on that one. So I read an entire book on the desert. It was so interesting. I loved it.
Well, that's great. I'm also a planner. I've come across several authors that they have each a different way of writing. Some will just go and just start writing. I'm like, how do you do that without where you can't write anymore? Exactly. Major writer block. But yeah, I like that you did your research because I'm of the same way where I'm obsessed with the Middle Ages book in my series. It was actually in my second book, and I always like it's a French word, and it means to forget. And oubliette. So I put it both in my first book and my second book. It's basically a hole in the ground, and they would have people go in there and they would literally forget about them. They would be there.
Wow. That's scary.
I think part of it was like the first time was with David Bowie in the Labyrinth, and he actually says oubliette, and I was like, yes, I need this in my story.
Yeah, 'cause it's so intriguing. It's kind of like, because you wonder, like, what is it? And it's creating curiosity for the reader. It's great. Like, what is it? What's going to happen? How does the person escape? It's kind of like Tolkien opening, talking about a hobbit, because you immediately go, what's that? You know, but then he kind of slowly weaves his world around it. And you're like, okay, I can digest this. This is interesting. I'm intrigued. Give me more.
Exactly. For us authors, there probably is some kind of like thing where we might be so hyper focused on something that you might see it in little sort of Easter eggs throughout our stories. We had this in this section, and now let's add it here. And oh wait, I forgot this. Let's put it here.
Exactly. And that's why I love my copy editor so much, because I need that person because sometimes you forget something and she'll be, there's a key in the Eternity Gate, and it's a very important key. And my copy editor would leave these lovely track change notes on the dock, and she would say, I thought Sayo put the key, in her boot, but now it's in her pocket, and we probably should, make this fit correctly.
Yes, I know that you have an upcoming Kickstarter book project. Do you want to share that with our audience?
Love to. 8 friends of mine and myself are banding together to do the Classics Rebooted Kickstarter. So you can find that by just going to Kickstarter and searching for Classics Rebooted, and it'll pop up. Essentially, it is 9 standalone novels, all science fiction or science fantasy or some variants of retelling or heavily inspired by some kind of classic. We have one that is Robin Hood in space. I mean, that just sounds really fun. We have The Secret Garden. We have Wuthering Heights. I've actually read that one. It's super good. The right amount of scary. I just love it. My retelling is the Greek myth Hades and Persephone. These are all young adult science fiction, no spice, clean. Definitely some romance, but no spice. And yes, you should check it out and follow the Kickstarter because we're so excited about it. And the covers are so pretty. They're a little bit shorter novels, but they're still novels. And we're putting 3 books in 1 volume. So there are 3 volumes, each with 3 books. 3 times 3 is 9. There we go.
That's awesome. So, what is your book title, and do you want to share it with us today?
I would love to, but mine is titled Hunting the Forgotten Planet, and I'm really excited about it. The tagline for it is on a haunted planet, the relic hunter becomes the hunted.
Well, that sounds cool. And I have a question. Now, is this inspired by any classics such as that movie Treasure Planet, which was based on, the classics Treasure Island? Or was there another inspiration behind it?
I'm sure I love Treasure Planet, and I also love another kind of more obscure adventure Disney movie from the same time, Atlantis, The Lost City. I love those movies. The organizers of the Kickstarter reached out to me and said, "Hey, we know you're publishing in fantasy, but you have a bunch of published short stories that are science fiction. Would you like to join our Kickstarter?" And I said, "Yes." And then choosing an actual classic kind of came down to my teaching. I was teaching the Greek myths 2 years ago, and they just love that book. The students love that book so much. And I thought, I'm going to pick a Greek myth in their honor because they're just such a great class. And I tried a bunch of different myths, and for some reason, Hades and Persephone stuck. And it was just super fun to write.
Oh my gosh, that is my absolute favorite. I love the story of Hades and Persephone. It's so sweet. It's so romantic, actually.
I think it depends on the version, actually, because there are different versions of the story. And so some of them, Hades kidnaps her out of his own volition. Some of them, he falls in love with her because Eros shot him with an arrow, or Cupid. So I like your version. That sounds good. It kind of reminds me of Beauty and the Beast, but in the underworld.
Right, exactly. He's Mr. Grumpy, and then she's all happy and like, hi.
It's the whole grumpy sunshine thing, right? That trope.
Exactly.
Although my Persephone's a little snarky, but she's
that is how I always write the female characters in my book. I think they have to have attitude because it gets boring otherwise. So you need to have someone with personality, a little attitude.
She cracks me up because she's a relic hunter. She's a history hunter. So she has been collecting idioms from the past and from different countries, and she likes to try to use them in normal conversation. Things that we say all the time, but she doesn't always know exactly how to use them.
Well, that's great. I like that. So, what besides this amazing Kickstarter project are you working on? Where can my readers find your books and follow any upcoming characters?
Yes. Going back to earlier in our conversation, I'm still in that go for walks with a notebook or the audio recording on my phone and talk to myself. But I'm excited about those projects. Like you said, it's good to be working on the next thing or things and see which one is ready to be written first. And it's kind of a fun place to be. A little scary because you're like, what's going to happen? But really, really fun. My own curiosity's peaked. I don't know. I think this is the next book. Where can people find me? My website, www.katherinebriggs.com. I love my email newsletter. That's my favorite way to connect with everyone. I love it. I'm also on Instagram at @KatherineBriggs_author. And then the Kickstarter, yes, go to, the other books, The Eternity Gate and The Immortal Abyss, you can find wherever stories are sold. Amazon, Barnes & Noble, the Enclave Publishing direct purchase website is great too. My publisher has their own store, which is awesome. And then the Kickstarter, go to Kickstarter, search for Classics Rebooted, and you will find the collection there for the science fiction retellings.
Katherine, thank you so much for joining me and for sharing your special title reveal. I'll include Katherine's links below so everyone can find the Eternity Gate, Immortal Abyss, and follow her upcoming Kickstarter project. Thank you so much for listening to Literary Ladle. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share this episode, and I'll see you next time. If you love picture books, chapter books, middle grade, and YA, hit subscribe and join me here on the Literary Ladle. I share honest, thoughtful reviews and book spotlights.